Hi, thank you for visiting www.tutorialspoint.com. This video is on critical thinking. So what is critical thinking? Let's explore this in the next slide, understanding the course overview and what this video tutorial is going to technically talk about. Moving on to understand, well, we will certainly would start with introduction and we will move on to talk about its applications, how critical thinking can be applied. Then we would understand, it's all about going beyond the comfort zone in order to explore and experience critical thinking. Qualities of critical thinkers. So who are critical thinkers? Moving on, critical thinking worksheet, a typical do-it-yourself activity to analyze and understand and evaluate yourself whether you fall in the bracket of critical thinker or not, or if you have to really pull up your skills to be there. Moving on, improving communication. Let's understand one fact that critical thinking and logical listening, which is reasoning, which is one and the similar aspect of understanding the topic. It is very imperative that I understand communication plays a very important role in every connection that we form with a human connection, and it is very relatable to link critical thinking with effective communication. Moving on, critical thinking and problem solving. Well, one of my favorite slider to talk in lines with how critical thinking can be aligned and linked towards problem solving as such, with changing perspectives. And moving on to understand critical thinking, a small quiz, just to again understand and relate the topic. Critical thinking, its aspects, and what are the basis of the understanding of the topic. Critical thinking and enhancement, as to how do I enhance critical thinking as a skill, and then we would conclude the topic. Moving on, introduction. Well, picture certainly depicts it, but however, I would like to really talk in lines of what critical thinking is all about. Well, basically, it is a set of rules with a thorough analysis and evaluation to form a judgment. So if I have to put it, critical thinking in a nutshell, it is all about a logical approach towards forming a decision. So decision can be made through strong logical reasoning. Emotions can also be part of decision making skills, but you need to be very clear and thorough whether these emotions can help build a judgment, can help evaluate and come up with a solution to a concern or a problem, or if not, then we have to really rethink in lines of why emotion should be excluded while we form a judgment. Let me give you an example. If a bakery owner would like to start or initiate something of home delivery of a cake or its product, the person has to be in thorough analysis of the fact whether it is cost effective, how feasible it is. So he or she cannot make a judgment or run into judgment lines just because customers or clients have actually have spoken in length or have spoken highly about getting a home delivery done. So getting into the account, the fact is, well, by emotions we can pick up this as a business statement, but however, do you think you can sustain it? Think over, and I would really like to hear from you guys in terms of a small comment with regard to the topic that I just spoke about, an example that I catered to. In case you are in the similar position of maybe taking a decision, will you consider emotions as part of the judgment process, or would you exclude it? If you would exclude, then why would you exclude? I would really like to hear. Please drop in the information in the comment box below. Or if you would not, then why would you not consider emotions as part of the decision making process? Moving on to understand its application, well, understand the fact that communication, not just for communication, in order to form decision making, any aspect of life, every walk of a life, whether I should get connected to the other human being, whether should I have a friendly rapport with the other person, should I perform at this task or should I not perform in this task. All these aspects are counted through critical decision making skills, which is your critical thinking in process. Moving on to understand going beyond its comfort zone, that is as a critical thinker, or if you want to really apply critical thinking as a process or its application to your own self, either in professional world or in personal world, you have to really keep one thing in mind, that is moving out of your comfort zone. The moment you're comforted, you are conditioned to take decisions in certain manner, you're conditioned to follow certain steps to form the decision, and you do not really touch the topic of critical thinking while accounting for decision making skills. So move out of your comfort zone, think out of box, and then align yourself towards something called critical thinking, and be happy about your judgments and decisions that you make. Moving on to understand qualities of critical thinkers. Well, one quality that evidently comes out is active listening. As critical thinking is linked towards communication and effective communication, active listening is one of the critical thinkers' ability. And the other things that follow are humility, or maybe perseverance, or effective time management out there in order to take a quick decision within snap of finger at times. So active listening starts and then it moves on to the other decision making skills. So why active listening? So if I have to really talk about active listening, well, active listening, I do not have a block in my mind while I think in a process, while I communicate with a human, or I do not form opinions while communicating. That is, I listen thoroughly and then I move on to answer. So in the process of active listening, I do not reply to just reply, but I reply while I understand, comprehend the concern, and then move on to speak about the same. Moving on to understand critical thinking worksheet. Well, strengths and the areas of improvement. So what are your strengths and what are your areas of improvement? So this is little critical out here if you are who ventured out critical thinking this topic for the first time, and you're not in the world of industry world, or probably you didn't really start your work and you're still at the college level or a university level. Think all those compliments that you've been receiving for quite a while now, that you're approachable, you're friendly, you are there to make decision to complete a task, you are detail oriented, you have eye for details. All these qualities would fall in this bracket of strengths. And then moving on to understand areas of development, it could be self introspection. That is, each time I perform this task, I'm very bad at time, or probably I'm not able to manage time, then yes, time management is your area of improvement that you have to work on. Or if you've been given feedback casually by your parents or by your teachers, your school authorities, or maybe by your manager, that you have to really work on your discipline and punctuality, then yes, that's your area of improvement to work on. So these things have been linked thoroughly to critical thinking, because if you cannot work on areas of improvement and development, it is very, very difficult to be there as a critical thinker, because critical thinking, not just your areas that of development has to be worked on, but the other thing to look at is you have to move out of a comfort zone. Moving on to understand improving communication. Well, conceptual relationships, that is conceptually how I can work towards making it more effective, making it more productive and fruitful, not just the conversation, but also forming a dazzling experience with the person each time you connect and talk. Moving on to understand the objectivity, that is objectivity of the fact of making decision, how objective I am, and not being subjective in terms of the approach. So when I take a decision on behalf of a team in a department, am I keeping a subjective experience to the others, that people might have a different thought process, people might think differently, people might have a different expectations out of the the decision that has been formed. So you need to be quite objective enough to close the judgment form there. Self-awareness, well, this is most important and critical to understand that every time, each time there's an emotion word that has been discussed, and emotional intelligence as well as followed, self-awareness of the fact that how well aware are you about your emotions. Are you emotional enough each time you take decision, or you do not counter affect emotions while you form a decision? Honestly, emotions does play an important role while we form a judgment, or while we come up with a certain decision, but not each time and every time. And what is the feasibility, what is the accountability of a decision that has been taken in place along with the emotion? That's something we have to look in. Moving on to understand problem solving and critical thinking. Like I said, I would really like to talk on lines of how are we realigning problem solving along with critical thinking skills. Well, we have to really think over quite hard out here, that each time I move out of my comfort zone and I'm very, very clear about making certain decision, countering many factors into account, making it more objective, then I form and I lead towards problem solving skills. So each time you have a problem and you do not think over for the solution, whether the solution is accepted or not by the opposite person, we have to really counter the fact that every time I encounter a problem and I've recognized this as a problem, you need to come up with different solutions to it. Finalizing, concluding can happen in the later stage of part of the discussion, but however I should certainly come up with certain decision making, that is a solution, effective solution, making effective solution towards. Moving on to understand, any problem must be solved keeping in mind the following factors, that is hereafter. Is the method of problem solving logistically viable? So I cannot say each time I want to go to my college, or probably each time I want to go to work, I want to carry a massive computer which has been lying in my home, and I'm very, very comfortable only with that computer. Is it logistically possible? Question yourself. Is a method of problem solving as inclusive as possible, that is countering all the factors and not being subjective, is what the statement talks about. Does the method of problem solving have any strings attached? Is it you're taking this decision because of this person, because you've been influenced with this person, because you've been pressurized with this person? Think on those lines. Moving on, is the solution being opposed by a few people and are there objections considered? So right now I would really like you to go ahead and think about a decision that you made and try answering these questions. So you can actually jot down in sentences and then relate and re-look into it, because it's a very good introspection medium, not just to rework on your decision making skills, but to be more effective in future as well. So we all sort of regret certain decisions that we have made, and not so good decisions, not so happy decision, or maybe certain quiet or guilt or built decision, that is, you still carry that guilt. So it's nothing like reworking on it and removing those blocks psychologically from your mind by only answering these questions. So answer one of these questions in the comment box below. I would like to initiate discussion with you guys. Moving on to understand changing perspective, a very effective methodology to understand. Well, when I put these letters which logically do not make sense in front of you, and I ask you to either form a word or form a sentence, the quick snap of finger subjective decision that people make is that they start reading VRY by just maybe placing the letter E, vowel E there, and then they move on to form something different. But honestly, when we have to really re-look into the entire sentence and entire word, there are 11 times the vowel letter E which has been missing in the sentence, and every time you add this vowel letter, you form a logical sentence. So rethink about it, that you cannot just quickly take a decision without keeping in mind the entire standardization process, because I clearly said the entire letters have to be taken into account. Moving on to understand critical thinking quiz, a small quiz to understand what's the best solution in order to lead towards critical thinking. What are the common sayings that these words signify? Decision, what does it mean to you? Well, decision for me has a lot to do with my emotions, because I am heavy on emotions as a person. Moving on, another one, that is, what is the other thing that you keep in mind? What is the 50th number in this sequence, that is the following sequence? Start rethinking about it, and how would you like to realign the entire process, and how would you like to equip your critical thinking skills and then apply critical thinking skills for these questions that have been asked. Moving on, critical thinking aspects, well, there are multiple aspects to it, and not just relying on just like few aspects, that is just by logic, by reasoning or by emotion. You have to counter fact, the information, that is context plays an important role, the situation plays an important role. Understanding to enhance, well, in order to work on critical thinking skills, I personally have worked, and I still would like to dwell the topic of much further and deeper. You have to really work on technical skills, then we have to move on to analyze, that yes, analytical skills as well plays an important role. Your critical thinking skills, your decision making skills are still part of it. Communication, time management, integrity, most important, fundamental quality of any human being, be it at workplace or as a person. Moving on, attention to detail, service and negotiation. So all these things can help you enhance your critical thinking skills and make you more effective critical thinker. So just analyze, do you miss out any one of these, or are you good at everything, or you have to really work on everything. So move on to understand this further and start applying it to be more effective critical thinker. So conclusion, well, this slide is something, we have consciously made a decision to put the slide out here. While we see different colors, and how are these different colors taken into account from a single perspective. This is what I like to quote, but that critical thinking is all about changing perspective and moving out of your comfort zone. Thank you for your time, and we suggest you to drop in a feedback or comment in the comment box below, and we would really like to have a word or a talk with you with regard to the topic. Thank you for watching.